I think 85% of employees were laid off. So now I'm jobless in a recession, in a global pandemic.
What's up, fellas? Today's video is a very special video. If you don't know, a few weeks ago I was actually featured on the legendary Ken G's podcast called his Nearest Neighbors podcast. Go check out that. Go check out his channel and go check out his main channel just called Ken G's. I'm gonna link them all below. So what I did today is I made a little mashup of the highlights of the podcast so that you guys can kind of see what we were talking about. We covered career choices, data science topics, sports analytics, and a lot of other things. It was a great time chatting with him. And if you want to check out the full length version, go check out his Nearest Neighbors podcast channel, which I will also link. And of course, you know I gotta say it, remember to like and subscribe to your boy. It'll help me out. Now please enjoy the video.
I was just a kid who didn't pass the gateway classes to become a mechie, did miserably trying to be a physics major, and then kind of had to become a math major because I had taken a bunch of math classes and I wanted to graduate like this decade. I had to pretty much get a math degree, and I was pretty much looking at what you can do with math degrees. And then this thing, data science, kept popping up. Being able to answer any question you have, in theory, just by digging through data and using predictive modeling, all these things that I started learning about really started interesting me.
And I found that in my own work is that the projects that matter, that I'm getting paid for, that I'm doing either for YouTube or for my main job, those are the things I come away from like, wow, that changed my perspective. I really grew from that experience.
The biggest thing when people first start out is they want to just take a data set and throw a bunch of models on them and like play with them. And when in reality, that's like 20% of the process.
I mean, you look at all of the talent. I think it was like the N1 mixtapes. I used to love those.
Yeah,
and you're
yeah,
like, wow, these guys are unbelievably talented, but their skill set is focused on a different type of game that's being played. And you have to learn the game. You have to learn industry. And on the flip side of that, I do still think you can show those skills through a project portfolio. Something that I rarely see people doing is within data science, working with other people on data science projects. That to me is something that jumps off the page to me, because you're going to be doing that at work. If you can show that you can do that in your own environment, that you're controlling, that you're managing yourself, that's an unbelievably valuable skill to showcase.
Like I said, I hadn't done well up to that point. And I think a lot of it was because I really had no reason. I had no purpose in school. I wasn't doing well. I didn't feel like I had a purpose. There were some semesters, like when I first started college, that I was actually on academic probation. And I went from that to my last 2 years, maybe having like a 3.6 or something, taking like mostly math classes.
I'm assuming you're doing some projects and things like that. How did you balance time? I see you have this giant whiteboard behind you. Is that a part of it? How did you manage to continue to learn when you were working full time as well?
I would just say okay, let me think of something I heard that I don't know what it means. Recall. I don't know what recall is. So I would look up what recall means. And my goal was just to learn like one thing a day. On Instagram, I would just follow data science accounts. And I would follow these accounts that would put a post that would just explain regression or explain some data science concept. On Facebook, I would follow the same thing. So as you're scrolling, you're going to see a post and I'll be like, okay, you see this post, just read it real quick and then go back to scrolling. And that was a very good way to learn, because you're just learning in that time where you're just, BSing on Instagram. You actually, oh, what is this? You learned something real quick.
Everyone wants to know everything right now, but you just described your career and your progression over the course of 3 years becoming a data scientist from a college student. Mm-hmm. And it is a progression, right? It's not like we learned this in Snap overnight, we're a data scientist. It's a very cool thing to see that, obviously we want to get to a destination faster, but these things become a lot more feasible. They become a lot more real if we look at them over a slightly long period of time. I would imagine with your line of work, you're doing more anomaly detection, those types of things, and how you approach those problems different than perhaps a more traditional data science problem.
Going from the private sector to the public sector was something that I never thought I would do. A lot of the machine learning I did, I was on a revenue team for Hilton. We were predicting, revenue forecasting how many rooms would be booked. It's all supervised learning stuff. The data you're training is all labeled. For this, it's all unsupervised, meaning we just have records. We just pretty much have people's activity data, and we have to find anomalous patterns in that. And one of the most flagged things is people looking up celebrity tax returns just to see like how much they owe. And the most common one is people looking up Donald Trump's tax returns, which happens all
Who
the
would have
time.
thought?
Yeah. So that's something that we have to flag a lot.
I've watched quite a few of your videos. I very much enjoyed the sports analytics one that you made, the NFL playoff prediction. And I think that's one of the reasons why I reached out to you. And I'd love to hear about your experience creating, and also what prompted you to start doing that in the first place.
Probably me just trying to predict games and win some money. That's probably what prompted me.
A lot of this is about volume. And, do I think if I was betting across a bunch of different games, a bunch of different prop bets, a bunch of different things, $50,000 a weekend, I actually think I'd have better odds of winning because I would be hedged across multiple different things, and I'd be able to like create more surplus that way.
So your company does sports betting?
No, so
Or is
we do
analytics?
advising on player performance and team
Oh,
performance.
okay.
So we have
Oh.
access to a bunch of the data sources that are available to the teams and leagues. And while it would again be legal for us to use those in those domains, it's also it might go against some terms of service, or it might go against some of those other things where we want to have access to this data still, right? So I think that's one of the main constraints for us there. I'm glad we got to chat. I think we told some pretty interesting stories, especially, going from a 2.6 GPA to becoming a data scientist. To me, that's a pretty compelling accomplishment. Also understanding what it's like to work in public sector for the government is something that I am not privy to on a day-to-day basis. And it sounds really awesome, the types of problems that you're able to approach and solve. So I wanted to thank you one last time for coming in, and I really appreciated it.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. It was a great time. Hopefully we can keep collaborating in the future.